Hello friends, welcome to Dungeons & Dragonfly, where I adapt various characters for use in D&D. I'm Dragonfly9078, and today I'm building Kite Tenjo. Quick note before we start, if you hear any background noise, I apologize for that. I recently got a fancy new microphone, which I'm super excited about, but I'm still kind of working out the kinks of, like the noise levels. So if there's any background noise, sorry about that, I'm gonna keep working on that. So what do we want from this build? Well, we need to play a children's card game for the fate of the world. That means summoning monsters to do our fighting for us, as well as supporting them with various effects of our own. Specifically, Kite uses the Photon archetype of cards, especially the boss, Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon. Kite is after the number cards, which he gets from people by trapping them in a duel and then ripping their soul out when he wins. So we need to do that too. And as you may expect, ripping people's souls out doesn't contribute much in the way of making friends, so we'll have to make one in a different sense, and construct Orbital 7 to be our lackey/plot device. Looking over at ability scores, I'll be using the standard point array. If you want to roll for stats, that's fine, just make sure your intelligence and charisma are high enough to multiclass. We'll start off by dumping strength. Turns out playing cards aren't that heavy. We do need to shuffle them without dropping them all over the place though, so we'll make dexterity 12. Constitution can be 10, even though we do take lots of damage to our life points, that's just a game construct, it doesn't reflect our actual health. Intelligence is 15, so we can figure out how pendulum summoning works, and we'll make Wisdom 13, so we have the perception we need to read the rules text on the cards without a magnifying glass. Then we'll finish off with a 14 in Charisma. Kite is a lot like Kaiba, in that he's kind of a dick, but he's fun to watch, and he isn't, evil, so you don't mind rooting for him sometimes. Kite is a human, but he's one of those folks who doesn't use a dual gazer and instead has a tattoo-like mark that lets him see the AR duels, so we'll use human with the Mark of Sentinel. That'll give us +2 to our Constitution, +1 to our Wisdom, and enhance our Vision by adding a d4 to any Insight or Perception checks we make. We can also protect ourselves by casting a shield once per day, and protect our monsters once per day by using our reaction to switch places with a creature within 5 feet of us who's being attacked. It's kind of like playing Astral Barrier, except of course, Astral is Yuma's partner, not Kite's. Kite has somewhat of an obsession with collecting the number cards, understandable since he's trying to save his brother, and he doesn't have many qualms about doing somewhat questionable things to do so. Plus, he has a little bit of a religious bent to him, so the Inquisitor background feels appropriate. That'll give us proficiency in Investigation and Religion, along with Thieves' Tools and one set of Artisan's Tools. Then we'll swap that last one out for proficiency with Duel Monster cards, because, that's what we play. That said, Kite isn't one of those Heart of the Cards losers from OG Yu-Gi-Oh! His abilities and tech come from cold, hard science. So we'll make him a wizard, the most sciencey of the spellcasting classes. Well, except for Artificer, I guess, but maybe we can pick up some of that later. Wizards get 2 skills from the wizard list, a third of which we already have from Inquisitors, so we'll take Arcana and Medicine. I have to assume that when his brother got sick, he tried to learn enough to heal him, and didn't immediately jump to, hey, let's steal souls using technology cobbled together from interdimensional aliens and the children's card game that runs our entire world economy. We also get Arcane Recovery, to shuffle some cards from our graveyard back into our deck on a short rest once per day. Those can't have a total level exceeding half of our wizard level, and none can be over 5th level. As a wizard, we get plenty of spells to return, though cantrips are always available. We have Dancing Lights to create a string of dim lights that float through the air, Message to send a message, and Chill Touch to get a head start on that soul stealing with our Photon Hand, a glowing spectral hand that latches onto a target and deals up to 4d10 necrotic damage. Any creature we hit with it can't recover HP on their next turn, and undead that we hit have disadvantage on attacks against us. Burning Hands is similar, except not at all, it's really just because it has hand in the name. We emit a 15-foot cone of fire, dealing 3d6 fire damage on a failed dexterity save, half on a success. Not the most Kite spell in the world, I realize, but there's a reason we're taking it. We'll get there eventually. Next up is our Duel Anchor, an invisible chain that locks people into duels with us, so we'll take Compelled Duel from the Mark of the Sentinel list. Our target has to make a Wisdom save. If they fail, they're stuck playing our game, getting disadvantage on attacks against targets other than us, and having to make a Wisdom save if they want to move more than 30 feet away from us. The spell ends if we attack or cast a spell at a different hostile creature, if they're too far away at the end of our turn, or if an ally of ours attacks the target. To continue our chain of tech that isn't cards in our deck, we'll get our Photon Transformation, with protection from evil and good. Photon Transformation is supposed to protect our mind from the influence of the numbers, which are interdimensional beings of some kind, and protection from evil and good stops us from being charmed, frightened, or possessed by aberrations, fiends, fae, celestials, and elementals, as well as giving those creatures disadvantage on attacks against us. Best guess for the numbers is aberrations, but they're definitely extra planar, so this should work just fine. We'll use Identify to actually determine what players have numbers for us to hunt, and Silvery Barbs for our first actual Duel Monsters card. I'm going to say Luminize. As a reaction to a creature succeeding on an attack, ability check, or save, we can give them disadvantage on that roll, then give advantage to one attack, ability check, or save that another creature makes in the next minute. So we can potentially negate an attack and let our monster hit back harder. Another spell we have in our deck is Battle Gravity. We create a 10-foot radius sphere of intense gravity for a round. Any creatures in the area make a Constitution save. Failing that, they take 2d8 force damage, and their speed is halved for the turn. Half damage and no speed reduction on a success. Now, as I mentioned before, Kite has a bit of a religious angle to him, so we're going to make him a Theurge. And since his cards are photon-themed, we'll go with the Light Domain. We can channel Arcana once per rest, choosing between the Theurge-specific Divine Arcana, which uses our bonus action to add 2 to our next spell's attack, roll, or save DC, and the Light Domain's Radiance of the Dawn, a 30-foot radius blast of sunlight that dispels magical darkness and deals 2d10 plus our wizard level radiant damage on a failed Constitution save, half on a success. Theurges can replace one of the spells they get each level with one of their domain spells, or if they have no more domain spells to learn, with any Cleric spell. There are a couple of Cleric spells I want that aren't on our domain list, so we will be getting all of our domain spells. Luckily, lots of them are on the wizard list already, like Burning Hands. One that I was actually surprised to find was not a wizard spell is Fairy Fire. We light up a 20-foot cube, outlining each creature in colored light if they fail a dexterity save. While lit up, those creatures can't benefit from being invisible, and attacks against them have advantage. And we'll grab Color Spray, a dazzling 15-foot cone of light that blinds up to 6d10 HP worth of creatures, starting with the one with the least HP and working up. For second level spells, Flaming Sphere and Scorching Ray are our domain spells, and both are on the wizard list, so we'll take them now so we can get a Cleric spell next level. Flaming Sphere conjures a 5-foot radius fireball that we can move around and run into things. Creatures it hits, or who end their turn next to it, have to make a dexterity save or take 2d6 fire damage, half on a success. And Scorching Ray fires 3 beams that each deal 2d6 fire damage on a hit. We get an ability score improvement at 4th level, and we'll use it to pick up the Cartomancer feat. But, did you know, Cartomancy isn't just a feat, it's also a game. That's right, this is the shameless plug section of the video. The Cartomancy Anthology is a new game by Code Coven, where you receive either a 1-card or 3-card tarot reading. Each card you draw, however, has a thematically linked game attached to it, hence the anthology bit in the title. I had the opportunity to sit down and play it with my friend Solidplasma, and it was a good time. I think I'd call it more of an experience than a game. There were definitely some things you just kind of had to go with the flow for, and, experience. But overall, it was a good time. Links for the game's Steam page and my collab with Solidplasma will be in the video description. Okay, so Cartomancer the Feat lets us use a deck of cards to cast spells, which is pretty good for a Yu-Gi-Oh character. We can use cards as a spellcasting focus, and if we do, we can add a d4 to that spell's damage to one creature a number of times per day equal to our proficiency. We also learn Prestidigitation, and we can disguise the components for it as general conversation and card handling. Most importantly, when we finish a long rest, we can put one of our spells into a card. The spell has to take 1 action to cast, and can't have a higher level than our proficiency, so it maxes out at 6th level. We can then flourish the card at a later time, and cast a spell inside it as a bonus action, though only once. Once we do, the card loses its magic. 4th level wizards also get another cantrip, and will continue the magician theme with Minor Illusion. Then for leveled spells, we'll grab Darkness to hide our monsters in face-down defense mode with Book of Moon, as well as Spiritual Weapon from the Cleric list. As a bonus action, we create a floating weapon within 60 feet. When we cast a spell, we can have the weapon attack a creature next to it, dealing 1d8 plus our intelligence modifier force damage. Then on our following turns, we can move the weapon up to 20 feet and have it repeat its attack as a bonus action. A couple of good things about this spell. First, it doesn't require concentration, it just lasts a full minute, and that's going to be a major limiting factor for us. And second, the weapon can look like whatever we want, so I have no problem with it looking like one of the monsters we summon. 3rd level domain spells are Daylight, which isn't on the wizard list, and Fireball, which is. Daylight summons a 60-foot radius of bright light with dim light for a further 60 feet to light up a whole room. Despite the name, this actually does not count as sunlight, so unfortunately Vampire Genesis will live to fight another day. And Fireball is, of course, Fireball, a 20-foot radius explosion that deals 8d6 fire damage on a failed dexterity save, half on a success. We're getting a lot more AoEs than I was really intending, but hey, I'm a commander player. Board wipes are important. 6th level Theurges can use their Channel Arcana twice per rest and get their domain's 1st level features, though no weapon or armor proficiencies. Luckily, the Light domain doesn't give us those. It does, however, give us Light, as in the cantrip, as well as Warding Flare. As a reaction to being attacked by a creature within 30 feet, we can flash a light in the attacker's eyes, giving them disadvantage on the attack, as long as they are capable of being blinded. We can do this a number of times per day equal to our wisdom modifier. Summon Warrior Spirit calls up a monster to serve us, our choice of either a fighter, barbarian, or monk. A fighter is probably the most in character for us. Lots of our humanoid monsters have armor, they're like knights and stuff. And Kite's deck has a habit of bringing things out of the grave to use for overlaying, and we did get both of our 3rd level domain spells already, so we'll pick up Revivify, which revives a creature that died less than a minute ago, bringing it back to life with 1 HP. Our 4th level domain spells are Wall of Fire, which calls up a 20-foot high, 60-foot long wall, or a 20-foot high ring wall with a 20-foot radius. The wall emits heat on one side, dealing 5d8 fire damage to any creature who ends their turn within 10 feet of that side, or who enters the wall itself. We also get Guardian of Faith, another concentration-less monster summoning, though this one is definitely meant to stick to defense mode. We summon a large guardian to a space within 30 feet, then any hostile creature who moves within 10 feet of it has to make a dexterity save or take 20 radiant damage, half on a success. The guardian sticks around for 8 hours or until it deals a total of 60 damage, whichever comes first. Kite has a photographic memory, so we'll pick up Keen Mind, bumping our intelligence by 1, letting us remember everything we've seen and heard in the past month, and letting us always know which way is north, as well as the time until the next sunset or sunrise. And of course, more spells. This will be our spell and trap removal suite, with Counterspell to drop a dark bribe to stop a spell from happening, and Dispel Magic for a mystical space typhoon to blow up one that's already on the board. Both automatically shut down spells of 3rd level or lower. Anything higher than that, we have to pass an intelligence check with the DC equal to 10 plus the spell in question's level. 9th level brings us 5th level spells, which means the last of our domain spells. Flame Strike is one last big AoE, dropping Divine Fire on a 10-foot radius, 40-foot high cylinder, dealing 4d6 radiant and 4d6 fire damage to each creature in the area who fails a dexterity save, half on a success. And Scrying lets us view our target from afar, perfect for hunting down those pesky number holders. They can make a wisdom save to resist being spied upon, but the more personally we know them, the harder that save is. If we're just looking for, say, the holder of number 56, the save gets easier. If we're looking for, where's Yuma right now, then it's harder. We can hear and see them for up to 10 minutes with our concentration. 10th level Theurges get their domain's 6th level abilities, which in our case improves our warding flares so we can use it when a creature within 30 feet of us attacks any creature, not just us. So we can use it to weaken enemies when they go after our monsters, not just blunt direct attacks against us. Sapping Sting will be our last wizard cantrip, dealing up to 4d4 necrotic damage to a creature, as well as knocking them prone if they fail a constitution save. And this is where we get the big monsters. All of Kite's cards are light attribute, so we'll grab Summon Celestial from the Cleric list, which calls forth a large Celestial to fight for us. The Celestial is either a bow-wielding Avenger or a tanky Defender, and we'll get our ace monster, the Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon, with Summon Draconic Spirit. Now, the original request for this build mentioned using Illusory Dragon as Kite's big ace dragon, which is a very good spell, don't get me wrong, so I just want to take a quick second and explain why I decided against doing that. First, we get this a good 5 levels earlier than Illusory Dragon, and it could have even been 6 if we picked it up at 9th level. Second, we can cast this multiple times if we need to, not to mention upcasting it, so we can keep bringing it back from the graveyard until we win. Also, since this is only a 5th level spell, we can put it into a card to use with our Cartomancy, whereas Illusory Dragon is an 8th level spell, so we can't. But mostly, it really comes down to the damage. Illusory Dragon does do a bunch more damage per shot, but crucially, it can't do radiant damage. If we make our Draconic Spirit a Gem Dragon, then its Breath Weapon can. Plus, Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon actually looks like it's covered in gems anyway. So yeah, if you want to go up to 15 levels of Wizard and pick up Illusory Dragon, then you are more than welcome to. It's a great spell. But we're going to stop at 11 levels of Wizard and just stick with the Draconic Spirit. Speaking of, we will end our Wizard journey at the 11th level for 6th level spells. First and foremost, going back to that whole ripping out souls thing with Soul Cage. As a reaction to a humanoid dying within 60 feet, possibly due to a Photon Hand Chill Touch, we can snatch up its soul and imprison it. We can then use the soul in a number of ways, like healing ourselves for 2d8 HP, asking them a question that they have to answer truthfully, using a bonus action to get advantage on our next attack ability check or save, or scrying on a place the soul saw in life for up to 10 minutes. The soul remains trapped for up to 8 hours, or until we use it in any of those ways a total of 6 times. And Revivify is great, but most duels last more than a minute, in the anime at least. So we'll pick up Monster Reborn, aka Raise Dead from the Cleric list. We resurrect a creature that has been dead for no more than 10 days. They come back with 1 HP and -4 to all of their attacks, ability checks, and saves, though that penalty decreases by 1 with every long rest until they're back to normal. We'll take a quick dip into Warlock now, and since Kite gets his tech from a scientist trying to unlock the secrets of the astral world, we'll make him a Warlock of the Seeker. That lets us create a Shielding Aurora as a bonus action once per rest. We summon up a Whirling Veil of Light that gives us resistance to all damage for a turn, and deals radiant damage equal to our Warlock level plus our Charisma modifier to any hostile creature who ends their turn within 10 feet of us. We do get more spells as a Warlock, but I'm not super fussed about them, to be honest. We'll pick up True Strike and Mage Hand for our cantrips to get advantage on an attack on our next turn, and some minor telekinesis respectively. Then for our first level spells, we'll grab Hellish Rebuke and Hex. Hellish Rebuke is a trap card that deals 2d10 fire damage to a creature who damages us if they fail a dexterity save, half on a success. And Hex is a debuff that lets us deal an extra 1d6 necrotic damage to a creature when we hit them with an attack, as well as giving them disadvantage on ability checks using the ability of our choice. Mostly I'm here for the Eldritch Sight Invocation, activating our Dual Gazer tattoo by letting us cast Detect Magic at will, so we can actually see what we're dueling with. And we'll take Eldritch Mind as well, to get advantage on concentration checks since so many of our spells require our concentration. There's also the spell Comprehend Languages, which lets us understand any spoken language and translate written languages by touching the surface they're written on, so we can actually read the alien language that the number cards are written in. Then we'll finish up as an Artificer. First level Artificers are magical tinkerers, letting us put minor sensory effects into tiny non-magical objects. For our Artificer spells, we're going to focus a bit more on things Kite can do with his tech, like Mending to repair broken objects and heal Orbital 7, and Thorn Whip to use his dual anchor as a grappling hook, lashing out at a creature within 30 feet, dealing up to 4d6 piercing damage and pulling them 10 feet closer to us if they're large or smaller. Now Orbital 7 can turn into a jetpack, motorcycle, and hang glider, so for our first level spells we'll pick up Jump, Longstrider, and Featherfall. At second level we get Infusions. Goggles of Night give us or Orbital 7 night vision goggles, giving whoever wears them 60 feet of dark vision. The Mind Sharpener is a snazzy coat that has 4 charges and regains 1d4 charges at dawn. If we fail a concentration save, we can burn a charge to succeed instead, so we can always keep our monsters around. And we can make a breathing bubble, a bubble that we wear on our head that contains an hour of breathable air, so we can survive in space. For a little while at least. Third level Artificers can always find the right tool for the job, taking an hour of work to make a non-magical set of Artisan's tools. The tools stick around indefinitely, but if we make another set, then they vanish. And to get our robot buddy/servant, we'll go Battlesmith, so we get a steel defender that follows our commands. Battlesmiths also get proficiency with Smith's tools and martial weapons, and if we attack using a magic weapon, we can use our intelligence for the attack and damage, instead of strength or dexterity. As for Battlesmith spells, we already had Shield for the Mark of Sentinel, but now we can use our regular spell slots to cast it, not just once per day. And we get Heroism, which makes a creature immune to being frightened and gives them temporary HP equal to our intelligence modifier at the start of each of their turns. As always, those temp HP don't add together, so they just refresh the amount every turn. We get one last ASI at 4th level, and I'm going to say bump Constitution to 14. If you prefer, you can increase Intelligence to 18, that's not a bad move, but we have so many concentration spells that I want a little bit of extra help. 5th level Battlesmiths can attack twice with the attack action, not that we should be doing much attacking ourselves, and we get 2nd level spells. To be honest, there really aren't many that I want. We get Branding Smite and Warding Bond from Battlesmith automatically, but Branding Smite isn't really our style. It lights our weapon up so it does extra radiant damage and makes the creature we hit unable to become invisible, so it's a little bit on theme, but we aren't doing much attacking ourselves. If we could apply it to our monsters, it would be a different story. Warding Bond is a little bit better for us, as it gives an allied creature +1 AC and resistance to all damage, at the cost of making us take as much damage as it takes, effectively splitting the damage between us. Still, it does make our monsters harder to kill, and hey, it doesn't require concentration, so that's a plus. Beyond that, the only 2nd level spell I really want is Enlarge Reduce, to bulk up Orbital 7 into his combat mode. Our tool proficiencies upgrade into tool expertises at 6th level, and we get more infusions. Thanks to our multiclassing, we can wear armor, so we can throw on some light armor and make it resistant to the energy type of our choice. My pick would be Psychic probably, to further fend off the numbers corrupting influence. We can also pick up a Spell Refueling Ring, which works somewhat similarly to our Arcane Recovery, putting a low-level spell back into our hand after we've already used it. In this case, we can activate the ring as an action once per day to regain an expended spell slot of 3rd level or lower. And finally, we can make a radiant weapon for the equipped spell Photon Spear. This is a +1 weapon that can shed bright light in a 30-foot radius and dim light for another 30 with the user's bonus action. It also has 4 charges and regains 1d4 at dawn. As a reaction to being hit with an attack, the spear's holder can burn a charge and blind the attacker until the end of their next turn, unless they pass a Constitution save. Our capstone is the 7th level of Artificer for Flash of Genius. A number of times per day equal to our intelligence modifier. When we or an ally within 30 feet makes an ability check or saving throw, we can use our reaction to add our intelligence modifier to that roll. Some say pulling the exact right card at the exact right time every time is Flash of Genius. Some say it's the heart of the cards. All I know is that a tournament judge would probably call it cheating. Now that the build is complete, the question becomes, how good is it? Well, we have multiple pets between our numerous summons, Orbital 7, and spells like Spiritual Weapon, which means better action economy. If all those things are attacking in one turn, we can really start racking up the damage. It also means we have multiple bodies to take hits, shielding our somewhat fragile self from enemy attacks with an array of disposable minions. That's not to say we just throw them away though. We have a bunch of tempo plays and combat tricks to keep our dudes on the field, from suddenly blinding the enemy with Warding Flare or a quick one-shot buff like Flash of Genius, to longer-term buffs like Warding Bond. On the other hand, this build's number one problem is the sheer number of concentration spells it has. We did pick up a couple of spells that don't need it, but the vast majority of our spells can't be cast at the same time as each other, which makes it a little difficult to build up a board state. We're also pretty easy to hit once you get past our monsters. We can put on armor, but since we only have a +1 to dexterity and nowhere near enough strength for the heavier stuff, we won't be getting that much benefit out of it. And finally, the Warlock levels aren't doing too much if I'm honest. The Seeker and Shielding Aurora are flavorful and I like them, but we'd probably be better served taking an extra couple levels of Wizard to get more spells, and then we could just grab one of our invocations with the Eldritch Adept feat. Tarot cards are often used as an introspective tool. How do you currently feel about yourself and what do you... Oh, you didn't tell me this was going to be introspective.
With me, what do you expect?
Ah, son of a bitch. Thank you for watching, friends. I hope you enjoyed the build. If you have any feedback or suggestions for characters you'd like to see me build, please leave them in the comments below and they could show up in a future poll. I jumped the gun a wee bit and put the poll for the next one up a bit early, so expect a video on Alucard from Hellsing Ultimate pretty soon. Leave a like or subscribe if you want to see more, and if you want to support what I'm doing here, you can check the description for the link to my Patreon, for access to the Discord channel, early access to future builds, and exclusive Patreon content. Thanks again for watching, I will see y'all later.